We are going to get rolling. We've got a lot to talk about this morning. Good morning again. Thank you for being here for reunion. I'm Betsy Cannon Smith, and it's my pleasure to open the annual meeting of the Society of the Alumni and the conversation with President Martin. A couple of special welcomes this morning. We have some members of the class of 2017 on campus this weekend. 445 of them graduated this past Sunday, and it's another talented and committed class joining our alumni ranks. Lots of numbers to share this week. Oh, thank you for that. Lots of good numbers this weekend. 2,200 alumni and guests are here on campus. We have 14 classes celebrating reunions, and that's from the 5th until the 70th. Class of 47 and 48 who reuned together. 140 programs, hundreds of volunteers who made it all possible. So thanks to each and every one of you who is here, who's helped, who participates in and supports the college. It makes all the difference. I'd like to welcome this morning the most senior graduate of the college, who is looking straight at me from the balcony, Bill Whiston. Bill, would you please stand? Bill is from the class of 1943. This is his practice run for his 75th reunion next year. And I told him it's going to be one big party next year for that reunion. We do have members from 1947 and 48 here celebrating their 70th, so you're probably scattered about. Might you stand, any of the folks from 47 and 48? A couple of other things to make note of. Two very generous members of the reunion classes have offered a $150,000 challenge for all new gifts to the Alumni Fund this weekend through June 2nd. So all new gifts, new or repeating gifts, given to the college will be matched, and we're very grateful for these two for coming together with this challenge. And one other fun number to share with you. Our class of 1967, celebrating their 50th reunion, will be the class that takes home the reunion trophy for the highest percent participation in their reunion for the 50th classes and below. And they are closing in on 46% of their class here for the weekend, 121 members. So congratulations to you. But not to be outdone, and anyone who's worried about the commitment or involvement of our younger alumni need not worry. The class of 2012, 140 members are here for the reunion. So they have the all-time high for a number of classmates. So we're very, very excited about that. So I wish you all a very joyful weekend, reconnecting with friends, making new friends, standing on the quad confused this afternoon, wondering which program to attend because there are too many good programs. And I'm going to introduce now Karen Giorgio, class of 1992, member of the Executive Committee of the Alumni Council, and on campus for her 25th reunion. And she will take us through the annual meeting and the business of that, and then turn things over to our president. Karen?
Hi, everybody. Thank you for being here today. And as Betsy said, we're celebrating our 25th reunion down at the new Greenway dorms. And if any of you have not had a chance to visit, I welcome you on behalf of the class of 92 to come step down and take a look. They're fabulous, and we're really, really enjoying celebrating there. So please come down and check them out. I'm happy to welcome you on behalf of the Executive Committee to the Alumni Council. The Society of Alumni comprises everyone who has graduated from, matriculated to, or received an honorary degree from Amherst College, while the Executive Committee is the group charged to transact the business of the Society of Alumni and to work with the college to support and promote engagement. The booklet you were given has more information on the Executive Committee, its mission statement, and membership. Now, let us move on to the business of the Society of Alumni. The minutes of the 2016 annual meeting of the Society of the Alumni are here. but they will not be read unless it is the pleasure of the meeting to do so. Therefore, I refer you to the booklet that was distributed and the information contained therein for the next portion of the meeting. First, thank you to the officers and committee members of the Society of the Alumni for their service to the college in this past year. They are noted on pages 3 and 4. Next, please turn to and review the report of the Society of the Alumni Nominating Committee on page 5, listing the slate of nominees for 2017 to 2018. And then I'll ask, are there further nominations to those made by the nominating committee of the Society of the Alumni? I invite a motion that the nominations be closed and that Secretary Cannon Smith cast one unanimous ballot for the election of the officers and members of the respective committees as set forth in the report of the nominating committee. Second, great. I declare the officers and committee members duly elected. Thank you and congratulations to our officers and committee members. So now to the results of the 2017 Alumni Trustee election on page 6. This year's election was held to fill one vacancy on the Board of Trustees to replace the seat vacated by Julie Segre. Sorry about that. The polls closed at noon on Monday, May 15th. Of the 23,478 eligible voters, 4,126 cast a ballot, representing 17.4% of the eligible voters. The alumni elected Jeffrey Blake, 83, to serve a 6-year term from July 1st of this year through June 30th of 2023. Congratulations to Jeff. Is he here? No. Okay. And a special thanks to Kareem Houston and Bonnie Jenkins, classes of 96 and 82, for standing for election this year. Next, please turn to the resolutions relating to the annual fund and the budget of alumni and parent programs as noted on pages 7 through 9. All in favor of the resolutions, please say aye. You can do better than that. Okay. Opposed? All right. The budget resolutions are so approved. Next, you'll find a brief report on the annual fund progress to date and details of an exciting reunion challenge on pages 10 to 12. Any gifts received before June 2nd will be matched dollar for dollar up to $150,000 by 2 alumni in reunion years, and we thank them for that. And last, we want to turn to the highlights of reunion. Sorry, I'm reading this wrong. And we would like to hear from President Biddy Martin. And I would just like to say, from the second that Biddy arrived on campus, I knew that we were very lucky to have her. But as I've become more and more involved with the alumni and different parts of the college, every time I hear her speak, every time I interact with her, I just feel more lucky and grateful that we get to have her to lead us. So without further ado, Biddy Martin.
Good morning. I think the sun is coming out, and I'm extremely glad because you deserve it. There's always a surprise at reunion, and this morning we had one. When we came up to the podium, we found this on the floor right next to the podium, and I wondered if it belongs to any of you. You can't see in the back what it is. I believe it's marijuana. It's yours? The panel that was here just before this one was Professor Sarrett, I believe. Well, there's always something. I'm delighted to be here. I'm delighted to see you all. Thank you for coming back, for coming home to this home that is all of yours. And I'm happy to speak to you. I've already spoken to a few groups, and so some of you will hear me repeat a few points. I hope you will indulge me. Somebody asked me yesterday what my vision is for the college going forward, and I referred to yesterday's New York Times ranking of colleges that are doing the most to promote the American dream, where Amherst was ranked first among all colleges. What I want for Amherst is the same thing I think all of you and everyone else has always wanted for Amherst, and that is that we lead in the combination of providing opportunity and academic excellence. Those are the things that matter, and to prove it, I'm going to read just a couple of quotes from the 50th reunion book. Every year I love reading the 50th and 25th reunion books. They're incredibly moving, and those of you who are not in those classes might want to get a copy of the books and read them. I'm only going to read a couple of answers to one question posed to the 50th reunion group, and the question was, what was the greatest benefit to you of your education at Amherst? And I'll read representative samples. The first is this. One of you wrote, "For me, the enduring value of Amherst was being part of a community of really smart people with high ideals and aspirations. I left Amherst eager to explore the world and found out it was even more interesting than I could have imagined." The second one is even more representative of what classmates wrote, and here's the quote. "Probably the most important thing I developed at Amherst was the ability to read closely, to appreciate nuance, and to look for the unspoken assumptions behind any statement. What stays in my heart the strongest is George Kateb coming into class on fire with John Stuart Mill's on liberty. That coming together of passion, intelligence, and wide humanity signified to me the best of Amherst." It goes on and on if you read the book. In addition to friendship, which I consider on the private level and the public level essential to democracy, and I hope you do too, the things that are most frequently cited about your time at Amherst are critical thinking, close reading, questioning assumptions, and thinking as an aspiration and as a joy. And what I would like to say to you about Amherst's future, and its present too for that matter, is that we aim to preserve what has made Amherst great over almost 2 centuries. And that is the emphasis on close reading, critical thinking, creativity, and to emphasize even more than needed to be emphasized when we were in college, many of us, intellectual versatility, adaptability, resilience, the ability to deal with change and uncertainty in the world. Now, to preserve the values that have made Amherst great, we continue to hire great faculty who are distinguished scholars and scientists, but who also consider teaching to be a calling, and who also consider teaching to be an art, one that has to be practiced, one that gets passed down generation to generation. And the great thing about all the young faculty we're hiring, during my time here, we've hired about 1/3 of the faculty because of retirements. The great thing is that the legendary teachers that many of you remember and from whom you took courses are still here, if either unretired or retired and teaching courses. And they are acculturating our assistant professors, our junior faculty, into the culture of teaching at Amherst, the importance of teaching not only well, but beautifully, and also of being a character. We're growing some new characters, and I hope you'll get to know some of them over time. In our student body, we continue to attract many, 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 many more students than we can possibly admit. Their average SAT scores and other test scores and achievements continue to rise as the diversity of our student body increases. The students are remarkable, and I would wager, for those of you who haven't been on campus much or haven't been on campus at all for a long time and don't know many current students, that you, were you to meet and interact with them, would see yourselves in them. For all the changes over time, you would recognize the same spirit of critical thinking, questioning certainties, skepticism, and openness, not to mention intelligence and passion. As I say, the faculty has changed quite a bit. We're hiring great faculty, prize-winning faculty who are fabulous teachers. The curriculum of Amherst is currently under review. One of the other things I really liked reading, not only in your 50th reunion book, but also in the commencement issue of 50 years ago, were all the debates that were occurring then about the curriculum. Very funny, looked at from today in the commencement issue. Coach Ostendorp criticizing the new curriculum, which was then the replacement for what you had thought of as the new curriculum, and saying that it simply gave students more time to play cards. That was his conception of what it did. By the way, DARP, there's an interview in the Amherst Student from 50 years ago that I encourage you to read. It's a long interview with DARP, and in it he opines on a range of things, how the faculty are doing with the new curriculum, what they're saying, what the students are doing, and then he's asked about LSD. So this is 1967. He's asked about LSD. This is a complete aside, by the way. And he says he finds it beneath the dignity of human beings to take any drug that puts us out of touch with reality. And then, even in reading it, you can feel the pause, and he adds, but I want to make sure you know I have nothing against alcohol. So. That was DARP, I guess. I wish I had known him, coming from a football family. All right. The ways in which we aim to adapt to ensure that Amherst stays the best college, not only in the country, but the world. You see some facilities that have either already gone up or are going up. The most important from an academic point of view is the new Science Center, which will be ready to be occupied in about a year, in the summer of 2018. This Science Center, which allows us to promote interdisciplinary science education at the cutting edge of what's going on in science today, will separate Amherst from its peers in the quality of research and teaching that can occur in that facility. And some of you will remember that we had a design for a science center in place when I first got here that we ended up having to let go of for all kinds of reasons which we don't want to discuss today, or at least I don't. The point I'd like to make for you about the financial discipline that it's so important for us to observe and emphasize, and that we are observing, is that the 4 new dorms that were built and the Science Center, the re-landscaping of the eastern part of the campus, which you can see just beginning to occur, these are the biggest transformations in the Amherst physical campus since the founding of Amherst College. They will redo the eastern part of the campus and make this an even more gloriously beautiful campus as a whole. We are getting those dorms, the re-landscaping that makes the campus more accessible as well as beautiful, and the Science Center, all for what it would have cost to build the original Science Center design. And that's a plus. In our residential and social experience and making it what it needs to be for students, the new residence halls were built with that in mind. I hope not only the 25th reunion class, but some of the rest of you get an opportunity to see them. The Science Center is built as well to promote interaction among students and with faculty, and to build a stronger social experience for the students. We are doing a range of other things, including pedagogical experimentation and experimentation in the way we approach residential life and the building of teams and support networks for students that are ways of adapting to new realities that require that in order to ensure student success. In other words, there's a lot going on here in the curriculum, in faculty experimentation with pedagogy, in efforts to ensure that students who come from widely different backgrounds are taking advantage of one another's differences. And all of that work is inspiring and I think challenging at times. We are headed in a wonderful direction. We know where we're headed, and I think we have a community on campus and off that increasingly is pulling in the same direction to ensure that Amherst remains academically and with respect to opportunity and service the best liberal arts college in the world. That's our pledge, that's our goal, and that's what we intend to make happen. I want to give you ample opportunity to ask questions because after 6 years at Amherst, I know you. And since we have to adjourn at 12:15, I want to make sure you have time to ask whatever it is that might be on your minds. So thank you for listening. Thank you for being here, and ask away. No questions. They're going to bring you a microphone so everyone can hear you.
Hi, Jeff Stern, class of '67. There was a great deal of discussion within our reunion book and during the reunion itself about the commonality of experience that the core curriculum that we had back then and the effect on the way it unified the class. And I think at least most people in the class recognize that's not coming back. But the question is, how can the college promote what that achieved in a new way?
Yeah, that's a great question, and we're working hard to find the best ways. I can't give you a precise answer because the curriculum committee, which is charged with thinking about how we can build shared intellectual experiences into the lives of students and into the curriculum, has not yet completed its work. I remain hopeful that they're going to come back with recommendations that take into account the entire 4-year arc of students' time here and think hard about what's needed at various points in students' experience. You're right, I don't think the core curriculum will come back. I don't think it can come back. Given the explosion in knowledge, given specialization, given what students need, given what the world needs, I have to admit, as I have to many of you, having read a lot about English 1-2, I would have loved to take it. I would have loved to take it, although I also hear it was hell. But, you know, it just sounds extraordinarily interesting and challenging. All right, but anyway, that's not coming back. But what I would say is that that kind of critical thinking, that high expectation on the part of our faculty of students, that they deliver no, what you all called fluff, no filler, no cant, no ideological nonsense, that is spread throughout the faculty and across the curriculum. I think as content becomes more widely available by virtue of the internet, those really critical skills that lie below the content of courses become a heavier focus for faculty, if you understand what I mean. And so critical thinking skills, close reading skills, quantitative reasoning skills are those skills that the students need to graduate having mastered, regardless of what the discipline is. And there's a lot of focus now among the faculty in their experimentation on how we get at those skills and how we ensure that students have them. So there's a different way of working what English 1-2 and Physics 1-2 did that really are salient across the curriculum. By the way, there were some people yesterday who said to me, don't call it Physics 1-2. It was supposed to be science, not physics. It's only because of the teacher that it became physics. So I'm now going to be very careful. We have someone up here too. Yes.
First of all, congratulations on playing the part in achieving this goal that you have mentioned in the New York Times. Following upon that, I would ask whether you would commit to achieving the commitment to the University of Chicago principles for freedom of expression as promulgated in 2012, and further to earn the highest ranking, the green ranking, from the Foundation for Individual Rights in Education, and join our august colleague institutions at Duke University, University of Virginia, University of Pennsylvania, University of North Carolina, and University of Chicago. While it may be some consolation that our current middle ranking, the yellow ranking, exceeds Williams' red ranking,
It's always good to beat Williams in anything.
I see that we should be at the top rank in this as well, and have the top ranking, the green ranking, with respect to rights of individual expression on our campus.
Well, I can not only commit to it, but we have a statement of academic freedom and expression, which was passed by the faculty over a year ago, which is as strong and much briefer than the Chicago statement. No filler, no fluff. I'm with you. It's vitally important. The foundation of higher education in the United States is freedom of thought and expression. And Amherst faculty unanimously, I think, or close to unanimously, passed a very strong statement, not because they weren't already committed to it, but because they had expressed that commitment by way of a support for the American Association of University Professors statement on academic freedom, which is quite a good one, but wanted, the faculty here wanted their own, and they did it in the midst of debates about trigger warnings and other things. So I can tell you that our faculty strongly supports academic freedom. As for the rankings of the, I don't know exactly what they're based on. I doubt that they're accurate about Amherst or Williams, because I think it's very hard to ascertain what's going on the ground from far away based on some partisanship on the parts of the people who are looking. But let me not go further on that. Yes, I'm still worried about the person up here. And is anybody taking a mic upstairs? Okay, all right.
Richard Ziegler, class of 1962.
Yeah.
I wonder, President Martin, if you could explain the decline in the alumni gifts from 2011 to 2015. I see it's about half of what it was at that time.
Well, it went up nicely this year. So I think it goes up and down. We know there are some alums who took time out and who said they were doing it because they didn't like the mascot decision. Some because they would like Amherst to divest from fossil fuels. But this is a small number, and this year we have a significant increase in the annual fund. So, I'm sorry? What is the percent increase? Do we have someone here from advancement who can tell me?
200 gifts at this point.
Sorry?
About 200 gifts at this point.
We're up 200 gifts over last year at this point. Dollars?
Dollars, we are up as well. I don't have an exact figure.
I'll get it for you. Send me an email, bmartin@amherst, and I'll send you the answer.
Thank you for the statement about higher education. I'm curious because what I've been seeing myself as well as reading in the media, if you could just make a statement about what you're seeing when it comes to the applications you're getting and the state of education in the United States and worldwide, what's going on in terms of the students that are coming in and the state of education that you see it from the incoming students.
Well, that's a great question. I'll turn to Katie Fretwell, our Dean of Admissions and Financial Aid. Do you want to, Katie can give you some great information if there, come up here, Katie. Why should I speak for you? We have an increase in applications this year, and they come very significantly from overseas. But there's more to be said. Kate.
Good morning. I'm pleased to report that Amherst continues to be an exceedingly popular destination for students. We did see an increase of 10% for our first-year applicants this past year. And as President Martin noted, we are increasingly international at the appeal. We have seen growth from students around the world, which is exciting, making Amherst a very different place than many of you know in terms of geography, geographic background from our students. As President Martin also noted, the academic qualifications of our students continue to rise. I always am hesitant to say this in front of our alumni, but I think it is going to be the best class ever, arriving in a few months. But by all academic indications, it suggests as much. But they still have things they can learn from our faculty. Our students right now for the class, they're about 50-50 male-female. They're coming from 40 states, from 26 countries. About 11% are first-generation college students. About 56% will be receiving financial aid from the college, and another few percentage points will be receiving outside funding in order to attend Amherst. We have 11% of our students who are sons and daughters of Amherst alumni. And about 43% have identified as American students of color. 8%, almost 9% are non-US students. And those are the things that we can measure. Of course, they bring with them experiences, passions, and other things that can't be counted or compared with other classes, but I'm really excited about the diversity of the students that are interested in Amherst.
Only people with microphones know who was next. So, here. I know you've been waiting a long time.
Not a long time.
Yeah.
So I appreciate the great efforts you're doing to enrich the student body. And one of the challenges of that, understanding, talking to students and having children as students, is that while the first year everybody comes in and there's no selection and they mix up, and you can end up with anybody. After the first year, sometimes people splinter along different groups, whether it be an athletic team, socially, and then the question becomes, how do you maintain the interactions to increase the interactions amongst diverse groups of people? Because that sometimes they end up living together and things like that.
Yeah. That's a good question. It's true. When students come in the first year, they're paired with roommates, not on the basis of knowing them or their own choices, but by the college. And they also are the class at the end of the year that reports having been the happiest at Amherst, which I find interesting because after that, of course, students want to choose their roommates and their groups. And at no point in the next couple of years when they've chosen their own do they report being as happy as they were. It's interesting, isn't it? Because we all think we want to be with, who we want to be with, and then that creates its own bubbles. So we are doing we've undertaken a range of initiatives in housing. We're trying to find the right balance between giving students freedom of choice and also giving them a nudge so that they move out of their comfort zones. That would mean, for example, to be concrete, students used to be able to choose up to 8 or 10 students, friends with whom they wanted to live in the same place. That number has gone down a little bit. I think it's now 6. They can go in with up to 6 people, but they can't occupy through room draw an entire dorm for a particular friend group. That seems to be working. The new dorms and the elimination of the social dorms has also allowed student affairs to start mixing class years across more dorms, and that achieves the result of having students get to know each other who might not otherwise have gotten to know each other. Actually, the Greenway dorms, which were kind of the beginning of this experiment in mixed class living, has had really wonderful results when it comes to student reports that seniors, for example, or juniors who say they got to know sophomores, they certainly don't believe they would have gotten to know or would have sought out if they'd been living elsewhere. So we're mixing things up, we're trying things. My view is there's no one fix for any of the challenges or aspirations that institutions have. It's important to pilot things, to experiment, to see what works, to make sure students continue to have choice. They're trying to learn how to be, they should be learning how to be adults who make their own choices, and yet it's our responsibility, of course, to ensure that they're learning. So we're trying a mix of things. And it's my view that the students, I said this yesterday on the panel on diversity, I just wish you could each come to the campus and spend a week or two, or a whole semester on the ground, because what you read about college students today and what you hear about the lack of mixing and interaction simply isn't borne out in day-to-day reality, which does not mean that we have gotten things perfectly right or that there are no forms of fragmentation and division in this student body, as there are in other student bodies, as there are in the country as a whole. But if you were here day to day, you would not say what we read too often in the media: the students are just in their own bubbles and they're not interacting. Not true. Not true. Much more than in the world outside, I claim. And I think I'm right. Yes.
You had a goal for increasing the number of Native Americans, and I was curious to know what the percentage was for this coming class.
For Native American students?
Yes.
The percentage is barely 1, I think, barely 1. We're making efforts, and will we be admitting more this year than we ever have? We don't know yet. We don't know yet. But we're making an effort, definitely. Yes.
Class of 57, one of the last of the all-male classes. And in reading the Amherst magazine, my impression is that
I guess some of you wish to correct him.
I didn't mean to cause problems here,
That's
but
all right.
I do mean to cause problems.
All right, go ahead.
Judging by the wonderful Amherst magazine, it appears to me that this campus is more and more run by females, judging by...
Females. And the question is?
Would you be willing to address that question?
Is it more and more run by females? No, well, I suppose in the nominal sense, it has a female president, and we have several members of our senior staff who are women, but the faculty is still majority male, and they run the place. Not really. They do help run the place, though. I don't really have a statement on it, to be honest. I think I could say it's all to the good, but it just sounds, I don't want to be, what's the word? Sexist, yeah. No. I think we have a healthy mix. We don't have nearly enough racial and ethnic diversity at the top ranks, and that's something we need to work on. But as for women, or females, I think we're doing all right.
Biddy, we've talked about freedom of expression and critical thinking, and I was hoping you could offer your thoughts on 2 points. One is what some alumni hear and read about the John Doe situation, where there didn't seem to be critical thinking or due process, at least. So I'd like you some comments on that. And if you would, the second one is sort of the whole issue going on with some coaches, where we're trying to make sure students don't make certain comments, but coaches being held accountable for essentially freedom of speech issues, which might be distasteful, but it's still, to what extent do we sort of discipline individual students or athletes versus holding coaches and teams totally accountable?
Both questions are really difficult for the following reason. There are very good answers that I can't give. On the John Doe case, because it's in litigation, I just can't say anything. I can only say to you that there's only one version of reality out there in the public. That's all I can say, and I'm sorry, but I just can't talk about it, and neither can anyone else at the college right now. So I really am sorry, because I like to answer questions. On the second point, the athletics team, the one team, and it was one team that was disciplined by athletics. All I can say there again is it's a personnel matter, and we do not hold coaches accountable, except in the ways that it may in certain cases make sense for individual students' behavior. I know that's more confusing than it would ideally be, but in personnel matters, I just can't give more information. I can only say I understand the principle you're articulating, and it's a good principle, but I can't talk about what really happened. Yes?
The construction is new for many of us, and I'm from California, and we have a lot of economic problems out there.
Yeah.
With the UC system.
Yes.
There's a unreported slush fund at the chancellor's level. Students are complaining of tuition raises in tuition costs far exceeding expectations. I just wonder, what controls do we have here at Amherst College to contain the cost of it's an expensive education here.
Yeah. It's a great question. What's happening to public higher education is extremely saddening and a serious problem for the nation. The UC system is a jewel in the crown of American life, and so are many of the other public institutions. Okay, what are we doing here? We have an incredible chief financial officer whom we stole from Dartmouth, and you'd probably rather hear from him about what we're doing than from me. I'll say just two things while Kevin, is he here? Come up here, Kevin. And I want to say about our chief financial and administrative officer that last weekend he received his PhD in American history. So he finished his dissertation. Wow.
Thanks, I appreciate that. The senior team can vouch for this. As we enter our budget process every year, it's intense and rigorous. We make sure that every idea that comes forward is thoroughly vetted, considered, and lined up against every other idea. We take very seriously containing the cost of education. When I arrived, our budgets were going about 6% per year. The last 2 years, our budgets grew 3.5%, 3.5 and 3.6% to be precise. That's still robust growth. We're still able to address a lot of the key priorities that we have. Our students, our faculty, you and our staff have a lot of expectations from the college. And it's an expensive undertaking. It's an expensive enterprise. And so we are investing where we need to invest, but yet we're very careful and cautious where we do so. On the tuition side as well, the last couple of years we've had the lowest increase in tuition over the last 8 or 10 years. It's still in the 3.5% range. It's still higher than inflation. and it probably always will be a little higher than inflation. But of course, as you know, our robust financial aid offerings make sure that no student is paying or borrowing to pay a part of that their families are simply not able to. So we take it very seriously. We have a terrific Board of Trustees who expect us to take it seriously and who will only approve budgets if they're sound, if they're carefully thought through, and their oversight there is terrific. So we're very mindful of this. I'm happy about the work that we've done in recent years. We still have more to do. Thanks.
One quick note to add, that is, we have a very strong endowment. The management of the endowment is cautious in a way that matters. And our draw on the endowment has, relative to many of our peers, been relatively low. That is around 4.5%. There are people, of course, in the government who think that not-for-profits should be drawing 5% of their endowments per year. In truth, 5% or more a draw would, over time, eat into the endowment, so into the principal. So I think we are exerting discipline, as Kevin says, by virtue of the board's fiduciary, the exercising of their responsibility, and also by virtue of our own desire. The other thing is, over the past 20 years, our net tuition income, when adjusted for inflation, has not grown. 20 years. And that's because of our financial aid program. So, yes?
Bill Ryerson, class of 67. I was part of a session this morning on the future of Africa.
Yeah.
And this is an admissions-related question. Fascinating to hear the statistics related to admissions and financial aid. What specifically is Amherst doing with regard to recruiting and financing promising students from Africa?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked that question. Because we are lucky enough to have, in addition to our own financial aid resources, a donor who has consistently supported low-income students from sub-Saharan African countries. And in fact, he is currently in Africa with our admissions team working to see how we can recruit more. So we have, I think, relatively speaking, more students from a range of income groups from African countries than even much larger institutions, and we aim to continue. Katie, is there anything you want to add about that? No. Do you know how the trip is going? What country are they in now? They're back. Oh, they're back from their trip. But what a remarkable thing for an alum and donor to travel with the admissions team for 3 weeks? For 3 weeks to see what more can be done in that regard. Thank you for your question. Anything else?
Oh, yeah.
Where are you? Oh, yeah.
I'm here.
Well, okay.
This might actually be a question that you would defer to the Chief Financial Officer, but it relates a bit to the tuition question, and I was an English major, so I may not get the money part quite correctly. But you may be aware, I'm sure, that in the last couple of years, a number of private liberal arts colleges in the country have started cutting back their tuition. And granted, these are also colleges that are probably struggling more than Amherst is to fill the seats. And so that this may be something that isn't so relevant to Amherst. But, a number of these colleges looked back and said, well, we're giving 30 and 40% of our student body financial aid. Why don't we just charge less money? And more people might come, or more people might not have to stretch to do this. And these are liberal arts colleges that have endowments that are fractions of what Amherst has. So I was curious if this question has come up in your deliberations and what the pros and cons of it would be in Amherst's situation, or maybe it's not really relevant to Amherst's situation.
trying to think of what I want to say about it. It's a very few colleges that are doing it. I'm not sure as a financial model it will work well for them. Some of those who cut tuition have then in subsequent years quickly had to increase it even more than they would like. Here's the reasoning, I think. First of all, if we can hold the average price for families adjusted for inflation level for 20 years and keep trying to do that and provide need-based aid meeting full need of our students, then I think we're right to continue to charge the tuition we charge. Why? Because we spend over $90,000 a student for their education a year. That means every student here, no matter what tuition they pay, even if they pay the $60,000 fee, is getting this education at a discount. So everyone, it's a discount for everyone. And that's important because people often think about financial aid and they think, well, you know, some people are getting a discount and others are not. Nope, everyone's getting a discount. And those who can afford to pay, this is the history of Amherst's financial model. It's the history of the financial model for elite schools all over the country. We've always depended on people who care deeply about education and about our college to support an endowment that allows us then to charge what people can afford. And I think that's a model people have said at various points throughout the history of Amherst and liberal arts colleges as a whole, this is not a model that works, but it keeps working. And it keeps working for those institutions that have loyal alumni, that have significant endowments. I don't think lowering tuition is a good financial model to adopt. I think lowering the rate of increase of tuition is very important, and that's what we're trying to do. Kevin, do you want to add anything? Would you like more from Kevin? Come up here.
I'll just add one other thing to that. Biddy really pretty much hit it on the head. We actually have gone through the intellectual exercise of saying, what if Amherst were free? What if we took our endowment and said, can we make Amherst tuition free for every student? And what we would be doing then, in essence, is providing financial aid to our wealthiest students and depriving the budget of revenues that could be then used to make Amherst an even better place. So it is something that we think about. There are other radical models we could consider, but the balance between offering discounts to students and families who can't pay and bringing in revenues from families who can to then invest in the quality of education at the college is the balance that we've decided upon.
Mike Boxer, class of '67. So I think when we started, the tuition was under $1,800.
Yeah.
You know, it's 30 times that.
Right.
And also, we probably could count the number of deans and administrators on one hand. And I think all universities have seen an explosion of the administrative staff.
Yeah.
Two questions. One, how much is the increase in administrators, deans, and whatever led to the increase in admission, and how much of that led to the increase in costs, and how much of the need to have all these administrators is because of regulatory and other federal demands?
That's a great question. A lot of the growth in administrative staff comes from regulatory demands and compliance issues. That's correct. Some of it also comes from changing populations of students and changing needs of students. A good example would be health and wellness, including mental health services, which have increased on all campuses and for perfectly good reason. I'm trying to think of the other drivers. You know, the other thing that's happened is that colleges used to be more what I like to call mom and pop shops in their administrative functions. And it's by virtue of federal regulation and compliance issues, but it's also by virtue of changes in a range of functions that there needs now to be greater professionalization in a number of areas. It used to be possible to do without attorneys, in-house attorneys, although actually now that we have them, we pay less than we used to pay on an annual basis for outside attorneys, so that's interesting. It used to be possible to do without as many student affairs staff. The world has changed, but regulatory issues are a big part of it, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, Kevin. I'm an English major, so the numbers I leave to him.
So I did a talk on Thursday where I discussed this a bit. So instruction and academic support is about 40% of our budget, which is roughly the same number that it's been over the last 2 to 3 decades. So even though we have been investing in student support, in administration, as you might define it, the relative proportionality of the Amherst College budget has not really changed over 25 or 30 years. The only part of our budget that has gone up on a proportional basis is what we spend on facilities, the investment that we've made in dorm renovations, the Science Center, and so forth. And even that's only a few percentage points. So we've continued to invest in additional faculty, in the Writing Center, the Quantitative Center, librarians, other aspects of academic support, such that the proportionality of our budget really has not changed.
Thank you, Kevin. I think, okay, one more. Oh, you need a microphone.
Blair Sadler, class of 62. This is a comment, not a question. Biddy, in an era of alternative facts that we live in, I want to compliment you on your commitment to transparency and openness during crises that occur in any organization. You're a real profile in courage. Thank you.
Thank you. That's the highest compliment I could imagine. Thank you. But there's someone in the back, and then unfortunately we have to vacate. Yeah.
So President Martin, I'm so delighted by the many different ways in which Amherst is increasing its accessibility. And I wanted to ask about what plans there are to increase the physical accessibility of certain buildings on campus. I know this is an issue for multiple buildings, but I'm thinking in particular of the Music Center, which is such an important place for communal life and for people to enjoy music and participate as students or as faculty or alumni, emeritus faculty, and thinking about how people who need to use a wheelchair or can't climb stairs can't enjoy and participate in that life.
Yeah, good. You are 100% right to bring it up, and it's something that we are working on always. The fact, I just want to go for a second specifically into music, because I think it's one of the strongest departments at Amherst, an extraordinary department for the size of the college and the size of the faculty, and I enjoy it thoroughly. It's remarkable, and the fact that it's not accessible is a huge problem. So we have a task force working to identify all the various ways, and there are many different ways. It's not just physical accessibility, of course, as you know, that matters. So we're looking to identify the various ways in which we remain inaccessible and to address them. And we will, of course, need to do it over time. I'd like to have an expansion of the music building or a new music building at the soonest possible point. And I'm just waiting for one of you to come forward and say you agree. But back to your point, This is one thing that makes me love the Greenway project, because at least if the Greenway project works out in the way that the landscape architect has designed it, it will make it easier for people with wheelchairs, for example, to get around the whole campus. It'll be leveled out, it'll have pathways that are wheelchair accessible, and it will allow people to get up to the quad more easily from the eastern part of the campus, in addition to having the eastern part of the campus itself be accessible in a way that some parts of the campus are not. So we're working on it. You're absolutely right. We need to. And I wish we could do it all at the snap of a finger. Thanks for asking. So now it's time for us to go, and I really thank you for your questions and your time. Thank you.